They said you could tell a future Beast Tamer by their eyes. The wild ones had fire behind their gaze, untamed, reckless, always reaching. The nobles wore their lineage like a mantle, cold, proud, and burdened. And then there were people like Ren Kairo, quiet, sharp, unreadable. He sat in the back row of Class 1A, fingers loosely folded in front of him, watching as the instructor droned on about Sanctum Theory. The old projector flickered with diagrams of the Subspace Core, the spiritual world every Beast Tamer cultivated inside their soul. Most students scribbled notes in a flurry of anxious energy. He just watched. Today wasn't about theory. Today was the awakening ceremony, and that meant everything was about to change. Remember, students, the instructor said, adjusting his glasses, a tamer's strength is not just the beast they bind, but the way they nurture their sanctum. Neglect it and your beasts will wither. Cultivate it and they may evolve beyond their limits. A nervous hand rose in the front row. Is it true some sanctums can evolve into entire ecosystems? Indeed, the instructor smiled. But such things are rare. Your first step is simple. Awaken your soul, bond with your first beast, and survive the trial dungeon. A murmur rippled through the class. Ren's gaze drifted to the window. Beyond the walls of East Oran High, the city pulsed with life. Sky towers loomed in the distance, home to elite tamers and guilds. The horizon shimmered faintly, where the beast veil flickered in the upper sky. A faint aurora, visible only to those with spiritual perception. He clenched his fingers slightly. One more hour, then it begins. The awakening hall was built like a coliseum, circular and ancient, as if it had existed before the school itself. One by one, students stood in the center, palms pressed to a floating crystal, a soul prism. When touched, it would pull open the veil between dimensions and summon a beast that matched the student's soul. Some cried tears of joy. Others left pale and shaken. Ren waited. Ren Kairo. The name echoed across the hall. Quiet but absolute. He stepped into the circle. Whispers buzzed in the crowd. That's the gardener's kid, right? I heard his dad used to be a pro tamer, until he quit. Bet he'll bond with a squirrel or something. Ren ignored them. He raised his hand to the soul prism. Cool. Then burning. His vision went white. Where am I? A void surrounded him, vast, endless, silent. But in that silence, something breathed. A presence. Low, ancient, restrained. Like a coiled storm. Then a shape emerged. A creature of flickering embers and stone, scales gleaming with molten veins. It looked like a small dragon barely the size of a dog. But its gaze. You are hollow. Ren froze. The voice wasn't heard. It was felt. You have power, but you wear it like a mask. The creature's tail swayed. Not threatening. Curious. Ren exhaled slowly. I don't need power to be seen. I need power to stand. To protect what's mine. And to finish what my father started. Silence. Then the dragon stepped forward and pressed its snout to his chest. Then take me, and I'll burn your path forward. He snapped back into the world gasping. The soul prism cracked slightly, an unheard of phenomenon. In his arms, a beast emerged in a flash of red-gold light. The small drake curled its tail around his wrist. Its eyes were a deep, intelligent amber. Its scales pulsed faintly with heat. What is that? That's a flame serpent drake, a rare type beast. But that's a tier 2 summon. How did a first-year bond with that? The instructor stepped forward, stunned. Ren Kairo, you just summoned a rare elemental class drake on your first bond. This isn't common. Not even close. Ren lowered his eyes. I'm aware. He didn't smile. Not yet. The dragon flicked its tongue and nuzzled his wrist. Soul bond complete. Later that evening, the dormitory was nearly silent. Ren sat on his bed, a journal open beside him. The flame drake curled up near the window like a warm furnace. Outside, the moon rose over the city, painting the towers in silver. He reached inward. Sanctum Core, unsealed. A wave of sensation surged through him as his inner world unfolded. The space within was barren at first, an empty field beneath a starless sky. But in the center, where his soul pulsed strongest, a tiny ember floated. His bond. The moment he stepped into his sanctum, the flame drake followed, shimmering into existence like a ghost of fire. It stretched and let out a lazy growl, then bounded off into the fields, its heat breathing life into the grass. The land responded instantly, stones formed under its feet, hills rose in the distance. Ren watched quiet. So, this is where they recover. Where they grow. Where I grow. But even as the landscape shifted, One thing gnawed at the edge of his mind. That voice. You are hollow. Why had the flame drake said that? The next day trials began. Their first dungeon. The class assembled outside the school's training complex, an underground simulation chamber that mimicked real Veil zones. Dungeons here were low-level, safe by most standards. Ren stood beside Lena Veil, who hadn't spoken much to him before. You were amazing yesterday, she said, trying not to sound awkward. Your summon? It's rare. I noticed, Ren said simply. She chuckled. You don't talk much, huh? He glanced at her. I only speak when there's something worth saying. Lena blinked, then smiled. I think I like that. The instructor clapped his hands. You'll be in teams of 3. Survive for 1 hour. Protect your beasts and yourselves. Your spiritual energy will be monitored. If it drops too low, you'll be pulled out. Ren was teamed with Lena, and a boy named Kresh who looked less than thrilled. Inside the dungeon, it was dim, humid. A forest biome. Fog crawled along the ground. Ren activated his beast echo for the first time, his senses stretching through the link to the flame drake. Breath. Movement. 3 wild fangboars approaching from the left. Enemies 7 meters, he said calmly. Lena, prep support. Kresh, left flank. Kresh scoffed. You giving orders already? Would you rather get gored? That shut him up. The flame drake lunged forward with a hiss, flame trailing behind it. A clash of heat and tusk echoed through the trees. Lena whispered a support chant, boosting defense. Ren extended his palm. Soul flare chain. His bond lit up with a shimmering tether, feeding energy between them. The drake's fire surged brighter, and in a single strike, it knocked all 3 beasts down. Panting, Kresh stared at him. What the hell are you? Ren's eyes were calm, focused. Just someone who finishes what he starts. Back in his room that night, Ren looked into the mirror. He didn't feel hollow anymore. But he knew this was just the first step. To reach Azure University, to uncover what truly happened to his father, to rise in a world where Tamers ruled everything. He would need more than one beast. He would need a kingdom. And he would build it one bond at a time. Morning sunlight streamed through the dorm window, glinting off golden-red scales. Ren's flame drake, whom he'd begun calling Ash, stirred lazily, exhaling a wisp of smoke. Its tail curled tighter around itself as it dozed on the warm sill, absorbing the rays like a feline sun spirit. Ren sat at his desk, slowly poring over a bestiary. Not for class. Just instinct. The more I understand wild beasts, the better I'll control the battlefield. My decisions have to be faster than instincts. Tactical first, emotional second. He'd repeated that phrase to himself since yesterday's dungeon run. He didn't care about praise. He only cared about precision. There was a knock at the door. Ren? You decent. It was Lena. He opened the door slightly. She stood in uniform, bright-eyed, flame-streaked hair tied back, notebook clutched in hand. You weren't at breakfast, she said. And today's the entrance ceremony. Kind of important. Ren nodded. Didn't feel like eating. Let's go. She paused, then gave a small smile. You know, you could try acting like a normal first year. Be excited. Nervous. Human. I am excited, Ren said. Just internally. Ash let out a small grunt and hopped onto Ren's shoulder, curling around his neck like a heated scarf. The Grand Assembly Hall of East Oran High was far more extravagant than the Awakening Chamber. Velvet banners stitched with beast emblems hung from the domed ceiling, each symbol representing an elite alumni guild. A large projection crystal hovered above the crowd, projecting class rankings and exam schedules. Students filled the seats, over 300 in total. Beast taming wasn't a rare profession. It was a necessity. And competition even in year 1 was merciless. Ren and Lena took their places near the front. Whispers rippled through the hall as students glanced at Ash. That's him. The kid who summoned a flame drake on his first try. Did you hear his prism cracked? That's gotta be some record. I bet he gets scouted before the year ends. Ren ignored the murmurs. He focused instead on the man standing at the podium, Headmaster Corin Vault, a towering figure with graying hair and a sharp silver gaze. You are not Tamers yet, Corin's voice boomed, measured and deep. You are aspirants. Embers waiting to catch. This world does not hand out power. It demands it. From within. He paused. The room held its breath. You will crawl through dungeons. You will face failure, fear, and monsters far stronger than yourselves. You will lose, before you ever learn to win. Then his eyes swept over the crowd. But if your soul holds true, if you protect your bond, you will rise. Silence. Then applause. Not wild, but respectful. Ren's fingers tightened slightly. He's right. Power has to be earned. And I'm already behind. After the ceremony, students were assigned their practical instructors and class ranks. Ren, to no one's surprise, had placed in Class A, the elite training track. He was less pleased to see who else stood beside him. A tall boy with silver hair and narrowed eyes smirked from across the lawn. Dressed immaculately, beast crystal glowing faintly on his glove. Juno Crest, son of a famous summoner family. Top of the written exams. Rumored to have dual beast affinity. Their eyes met briefly. Juno raised an eyebrow. Ren Kairo, right? Ren didn't reply. Juno walked closer, gaze sharp but not hostile. I'm curious, what's it like to bond with a flame drake as your first? Hot, Ren replied flatly. Juno let out a quiet laugh. I like that. Dry wit. No fake humility. You're not like the rest. Ren studied him. Everything about Juno radiated pressure. Not arrogance, but confidence earned by training. Just remember, Juno added, stepping closer, voice low, rare beasts draw attention. And attention draws challengers. You won't be left alone. Ren met his gaze calmly. I don't plan on staying in anyone's shadow, including yours. Ash hissed softly on his shoulder, flicking its tail. For a second, Juno's eyes flickered with amusement and something else. Approval? Good, he said, stepping back. Then let's see how far you can climb before midterms. That afternoon, Ren was assigned his personal instructor, Professor Valen Thorn. The man had a long coat, worn gloves, and an old scar across his brow, but his aura felt coiled, like he could snap into motion at any moment. He led Ren to a private arena beside the Sanctum research wing. You're strong, Thorn said simply, but raw. Your Sanctum is still in its infant stage. Let's test your control. He tossed a wooden training totem onto the field. It began to glow. Ash leapt down immediately, taking position. Ren extended his hand, drawing spiritual energy into focus. Beast Echo. His senses merged with Ash's, vision expanding, hearing sharpening, heat signature mapping the target. Good form, Thorn muttered. Now activate resonance. Let's see how deep your bond really runs. Ren steadied his breath. Ash, strike. The flame drake surged forward in a burst of speed, fire rippling down its spine. The totem reacted, spawning 3 illusionary wolves. Ash met them head-on but was pushed back slightly. I need to give him more. Ren pushed a surge of SE through the bond, spiritual energy threading into Ash's limbs. Soul flare chain. Ash ignited again, tail wreathed in flame, claws slicing with burning arcs. In seconds, all 3 wolves vanished. Ren dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Thorn nodded. Not bad. But your SE output control is inefficient. You're leaking too much. Practice modulation or you'll burn out in a real dungeon. Ren wiped his brow. Understood. The professor studied him, then spoke more quietly. You have potential, but you're not your father. Ren looked up, startled. Thorn's gaze sharpened. I knew him. He was brilliant and broken. Don't chase his shadow, boy. Build your own. Then he turned and walked away. That night, Ren sat alone in his Sanctum Core. Ash curled nearby, chewing a sparkstone. The landscape had already begun to shift, grassy plains now dotted with ember-laced trees. A pond shimmered in the distance, steam rising faintly. Ren watched it all in silence. Don't chase his shadow. But wasn't that what he was doing? Or was he trying to finish something that had never been finished? He laid back against the warm ground, eyes closing. In time his beasts would grow. His soul would deepen. Rivals would become allies or enemies. But for now he had Ash, and that was enough. A beast's heart isn't easily understood. They don't think in words or rules. They sense emotions, pressure, intent, weakness. That's why Ren had read, some tamers who showed fear during their first bond were instantly rejected. Or worse, attacked. But Ash was different. The flame drake had never growled at him. Never tested dominance. It simply accepted him the way fire accepts oxygen. Quietly. Naturally. Ren didn't mistake that for trust. It was curiosity. A silent pact. He wants to grow. So do I. That's enough for now. The week after the entrance ceremony was packed with basic skill training, beast care, and meditation hours for spiritual energy cultivation. But even in a school that prized discipline, there was one place where order blurred, the Veil Field. A semi-wild enclosure near the edge of campus. The Veil Field simulated natural environments where lower-tier wild beasts occasionally wandered in through weak rifts. Dangerous? Not often. But unpredictable? Always. Students weren't forbidden from entering, but they were strongly advised not to go in without supervision. Naturally, that made it the perfect place to think. Ren stepped between tall reeds as morning mist clung to the earth. The air was still, tinged faintly with manna. A few insects buzzed near the edge of a stream. Ash padded ahead silently, tail swaying, tongue flicking to test the air. Ren crouched beside the stream, filling his canteen. "Ash," he said, "do you remember your life before the bond?" The drake tilted its head, then nodded. Not a human gesture, but intentional. Ren watched him carefully. "Do you regret it?" Ash didn't respond for a long time. Then it bumped its snout against Ren's hand and curled its tail around his wrist. Ren smiled slightly. "Understood." A rustle in the bushes. Ash growled, low and quiet. Ren immediately focused, vision narrowing, ears sharpening. Movement. Something, not weak. A low growl echoed from the trees, followed by a thud. Then another. A massive form stepped into view, snorting steam from its nostrils. A silver-tusked Boralox. Ren froze. It was nearly the size of a car. Muscular. A boar-beast hybrid with thick fur, reinforced tusks, and territorial instincts. It wasn't supposed to be here, not this close to campus. Ash hissed, flames pulsing down his spine. Ren's heartbeat quickened, but he didn't move. "If we run, it chases. If we fight recklessly, we both get injured. I need to handle this calmly." He stepped forward slowly, raising his hand. Ash mirrored him, matching his breathing rhythm. Tamer's gaze. A spiritual ripple flowed from Ren's eyes, locking with the Boralox's. It hesitated just for a moment, as if confused. "No." Ash left flank. "Burn high." "Not direct." Ash leapt, flames bursting from his mouth in an arc over the beast's head. The Boralox reared back, blinded by the light but uninjured. Ren dove right, scooping a burst seed pod from the underbrush and hurling it toward the beast's flank. The pod exploded in smoke. Ash came down hard, claws raking the beast's hind leg just enough to leave a mark, but not provoke rage. Ren shouted firmly, voice controlled, "Go. Now." Ash and Ren both backed away slowly, eyes never leaving the beast. The Boralox snorted once more, then turned, stomping away into the deeper forest. Silence returned. Ren exhaled slowly. His palms were damp. Ash's tail still twitched. That wasn't part of the curriculum. Ash bumped into him again, this time more forcefully. A proud gesture. Ren chuckled. "Yeah, we handled it." Back on campus, Ren filed an anonymous report about the Boralox sighting. By the time anyone responded, the beast would be long gone. But he didn't want it hurting other students. Not everyone could handle tension like that. That evening, Ren sat in his Sanctum Core, watching as Ash rolled through a fresh lava pool, one that had formed naturally inside the spiritual landscape. The sanctum had changed again. Hot springs bubbled near obsidian stones. Fire-resistant vines coiled up trees that hadn't existed days ago. Ash's recent exertion had strengthened their link. The drake's influence bled into the terrain. And Ren's spiritual energy, though drained, felt clearer, like he'd shed a layer of static thought. He sat beneath one of the new trees, back resting against the trunk. "I kept calm. I chose my moment. That's the kind of tamer I want to be." He watched Ash practice flame arcs alone, eyes narrowed in focus. No wasted movement. No showmanship. Just growth. Elsewhere that night, inside the instructor's lounge, Professor Thorne scanned Ren's latest SE report. Another instructor peeked over. "One of your new prodigies?" Thorne nodded. "Ren Kairo. Flame Serpent Drake. Strong affinity. Unusual control." "Another genius?" "No," Thorne said. "Not quite. He's not a natural. He's calculating. Quiet. But when he moves, it's with purpose." The other man chuckled. "Those are the ones you have to watch out for." Thorne sipped his tea, still staring at the report. "That's the plan." In the early morning quiet, Ren stood alone on the training grounds. Most students were still asleep, their dorm lights dim. But the moment the barrier fields flickered on, Ren had slipped outside with Ash. They had no time to waste. "We're behind." That was what Professor Thorne had said after reviewing the class rankings. Not because Ren had failed, he was already top 5 in early assessments, but because his sanctum output efficiency was still irregular. He needed to learn how to call on his beast's traits more smoothly, more deliberately. And to do that, he had to awaken Ash's signature technique. Ash crouched across from him, tail coiled, eyes locked. Ren knelt, inhaling slowly. Alright, he whispered. Let's begin. Soul Channeling Phase 1. A thread of spiritual energy unraveled from Ren's core and spiraled outward. Ash's eyes glowed faintly, heat rising around his body. The bond tethered deeper, not just sensation now, but memory, emotion. Flashes of fire, pressure, the scent of smoke, the sound of heartbeats in battle. Let me in, show me your core instinct. Ash roared. A burst of heat surged around them, wild, untamed for a split second, and then condensed into something sharper. Suddenly, Ren wasn't standing across from Ash. He was inside the flame. He stood in a spiritual projection space, a mirrored plane within the soul veil. And there, Ash stood tall, larger than before, ethereal flames spiraling around him. It opened its jaws and a spiraling vortex of heat formed, crackling like a lance. That's it. The vision shattered. Ren dropped to one knee, gasping. Steam hissed off the dirt. Ash stood before him, body glowing faintly orange from exertion. Ren smiled. You're ready? Later that afternoon, students assembled at the combat gardens, a hexagon-shaped arena complex built for live beast drills. Each student was to demonstrate a basic combat maneuver with their bonded beast. Ren stood quietly as his turn approached, listening half-heartedly as other students showed flashy dodges, tail swipes, or basic fireballs. Lena cheered from the side as her bonded beast, a small Sylvian hare, used wind-augmented leaps. Then came Ren's name. The instructor looked up. Ren Kairo, demonstration. Flame Drake, first signature maneuver. Ren stepped into the arena with Ash close behind. Whispers returned like a tide. That's the Flame Drake guy. I heard his spiritual output spiked last night. Training alone again? Let's see if he's the real deal or just flashy. Ren didn't care. He raised one hand. Ash, he said calmly. Form, infernal spiral. Target dummy. Short-range burst. Minimum output. Ash roared. Flames coiled down its spine as its legs bent low. Then, boom. It twisted forward in a spinning pounce, flame forming a helix around its body. When it struck the dummy, the wood exploded into splinters, flame curling inwards rather than outward. Focused, sharp, brutal. The class fell silent. The instructor stood stunned. That was a rotational burst pattern. That's not beginner level. That's tier 2. Ren nodded once. He created it. I just helped name it. From the crowd, someone clapped once. Juno Crest. He smiled faintly. Now that was clean. Ren gave no reaction, but his fingers loosened slightly. That evening, Ren sat cross-legged in the heart of his Sanctum Core. The terrain had shifted again, more elevation, lava rifts forming beneath stone pathways. Ash rested on a glowing obsidian ledge, tail curled neatly. Ren stared up at the blank sky above, still starless. He'd read that stars in a sanctum came with awakening higher-level beasts or hitting a major cultivation breakthrough. One day, this sky will be full. He closed his eyes and cycled spiritual energy through his core, breath steady. Pulse in, pulse out. His mind drifted back to the technique. Infernal spiral wasn't just a skill. It was a symbol, proof of cooperation. Ash had created the flame. Ren had channeled the structure. Together they refined it into form. And something inside Ren felt different. Not stronger. Not yet. But steadier. Meanwhile, across campus, Headmaster Korin reviewed a glowing slate sent from the instructor teams. Ren Kairo, he murmured. Flame Drake. Formed a technique in under a week. A voice spoke behind him. Another prodigy? Korin shook his head. Not quite. His technique wasn't born from instinct. It was tempered. That's rarer than genius. He turned slowly, expression unreadable. Send his file to the Azura Scouting Bureau. The aide hesitated. He's still a first year. Exactly, Korin said. Let's see who's paying attention. Back in his sanctum, Ren opened his eyes slowly. Ash's fire had dimmed into a warm glow. Tomorrow would bring team challenges. Lena would want a partner. Kresh would grumble again. Juno might test him further. But none of that mattered tonight. Tonight he had taken the next step. One beast. One bond. One fire lit. And many more to come. The dungeon gate pulsed with quiet menace. It stood at the base of East Orin's lower cliff, carved into rock like the mouth of a sleeping god. Magical runes flickered across its surface, warning and invitation both. Today, the first-year students of Class A would face their trial dungeon, a controlled dungeon with mild danger, meant to assess their instincts and spiritual stamina in real combat conditions. But danger, Ren knew, had a habit of showing up where it wasn't invited. They gathered in teams of 3, standing before Professor Thorn as he reviewed the rules one last time. You enter with 1 bonded beast only. Your mission is simple. Reach the core chamber, activate the exit glyph, and return. No taming, no straying from the path. Survival and teamwork are the only metrics. You'll be scored individually, even within a group. Ren stood beside Lena, Vale, and Kresh, not by choice but assignment. Lena looked excited, stretching as her Sylvian hair hopped gently at her feet. Finally. A real test. Kresh groaned, brushing dust off his jacket. We better not get stuck with something weird like venom rats. Ren adjusted his gloves without speaking. Ash flicked its tail across his shoulders, alert and calm. Professor Thorn continued. The dungeon's spiritual field suppresses reckless energy use. Your output must be controlled. The environment is forest ruin type. Mist levels will increase with time. Stay sharp. Then the gate opened. Mist rolled outward like breath. Ren stepped in first. Inside, the air turned cool and damp. Moss-covered stones jutted from the ground. Broken pillars leaned against trees that should have died centuries ago. Birdsong echoed faintly, too faint to be real. Ash sniffed the air, tail twitching. This place feels wrong, Lena whispered. Dungeons aren't natural, Ren replied. They're leftover folds in space. Spiritual turbulence takes root and creates artificial ecosystems. No rules, just patterns. Kresh raised a brow. You study for fun or something? Ren's reply was cut off by a sharp, wet hiss. From behind a ruined archway, 3 creatures slinked out, mist claws. Low-slung, panther-like beasts with elongated limbs and mist pulsing from their spines. Coordinated predators. Ash, front intercept. Lena, boost now. Ash surged forward, flames trailing behind him. Lena whispered a spell, wind pulse, and her hair's speed doubled, leaping back to the flank. The mist claws split, 2 flanking Ash, 1 darting toward Lena. Ren narrowed his eyes. They're not acting wild. They're moving like a pack. Ash lashed out, knocking one aside with a flaming tail sweep. The second leapt for its throat. Ren pushed Soul Flare chain, flooding strength through the bond. Ash's flame ignited mid-roll, infernal spiral, catching the attacker in a blast that knocked it out cold. Ren turned just in time to see Lena pushed off balance, her hair squeaking as the 3rd mist claw lunged. Kresh, she cried. Kresh froze for a second. Then, reluctantly, he sent his beast, a stone back toward her, to shield her. It barely made it in time, blocking the strike with a heavy thunk. Lena landed hard, breathing fast. Thanks, she muttered. Ren didn't speak. His focus was elsewhere. The mist claws were down, but something was off. He looked into the shadows of the dungeon corridor. Ash growled, facing the darkness. Then they heard it. Not a roar. A whistle. Sure. Intentional. Followed by the sound of retreating paws. What the hell was that? Kresh whispered. Wild beasts don't retreat on command, Lena said. Did someone just call them off? Ren's eyes narrowed. Something's inside this dungeon that shouldn't be. They reached the core chamber within 40 minutes. A broken garden of cracked statues and hanging roots filled the space. In the center, a circular glyph shimmered faintly, a core seal. Meant to be touched to trigger extraction. Ren moved toward it. But Ash stopped. Then, without warning, the walls cracked. A hulking form dropped from above, slamming the ground with a guttural snarl. A shade-back direwolf. Tier 2. Not part of this dungeon. Its fur shimmered like smoke, eyes glowing dull silver. Ash roared in response, fire flaring to full. Ren felt it immediately, a presence not native to the dungeon, but born of spiritual corruption. Something had brought this wolf here. Lena, Kresh, back up. Defensive only. Ash leapt without waiting, flames spiraling again. Infernal spiral. The direwolf twisted away mid-strike, fast. Too fast. Ash landed, already moving. Ren didn't blink. Ash, flame faint. Pivot tail right. Dodge, then burst pulse. Ash obeyed on instinct, leaping high, tail coiling, flames exploding downward in a concussive flash. The direwolf stumbled. Ren surged spiritual energy forward. Beast echo. For a second he saw through Ash's eyes, heat trails, movement, the flicker of the wolf's next step. Ash struck. The wolf collapsed. Not dead, but winded. Ren exhaled slowly. Hit the seal. Now. Lena rushed forward and touched the core glyph. Light engulfed the room, and all 3 were teleported out. Back on the surface, alarms were already sounding. Thorn met them at the gate, frowning. Why did your SE spike near the core? He demanded. Ren replied calmly. A tier 2 beast entered the chamber. A dire wolf. It was not dungeon native. Thorn's gaze turned sharp. Are you certain? Ren nodded. Then someone tampered with the dungeon. That night, Ren sat quietly in his sanctum. Ash slept near the glowing spring. The stars above were still absent, but one had started to shimmer faintly. Only one. It was enough. Even the trials are being twisted. I'll need more strength, more bonds, more answers. He didn't fear the darkness. He was preparing to tame it. Whispers always follow a victory. By the next morning, everyone in Class A had heard about what happened in the trial dungeon. A tier 2 dire wolf. A corrupted incursion. Ren holding the front line while others hesitated. Some called him reckless. Others called him brilliant. Ren called it necessary. He sat beneath a training arch in the beast practice yard, legs folded, eyes closed. Ash dozed beside him, tail flicking through warm air. The morning sun pressed through the glass dome above, dappling gold across the arena. Lena approached with a flask in hand. You're a campus legend now, you know? Ren didn't open his eyes. That's a problem. She smirked. Not for your ranking. You jumped to 4th place after the evaluation update. He finally looked up. Only 4th. You're hard to impress. Ash let out a soft snort, smoke drifting lazily around its head. Lena sat beside them, sipping from her own flask. Seriously though, she said more quietly. That wolf, it wasn't just corruption. You saw it too, didn't you? Ren nodded once. Someone let it in. Probably used a masking glyph. That kind of spiritual trail doesn't happen by accident. And that whistle? He didn't answer. But he hadn't forgotten it. By midday, Ren was summoned to the open challenge board, a public space in the arena courtyard where students could issue duels for ranking shifts. The challenge was already posted. Name Juno Crest. Challenger rank 3. Challenge to Ren Kairo. Conditions: 1 beast per side. No external techniques. Victory by surrender, incapacitation, or SE depletion. At the bottom it read, approved by instructor Valen Thorn. Lena stared at it, jaw half open. He challenged you publicly? Isn't this kind of early? Ren read the posting in silence. Ash tilted its head. Looks like I made it onto his radar, Ren said. This fast? A voice answered from behind. Smooth. Confident. He was already watching you. We all were. Ren turned to see Juno Crest approaching, hands in his pockets, silver hair catching the light. You're calm, Juno said. Too calm. Most people would be flattered by a formal challenge from a crest. Ren met his gaze, unwavering. I'm not interested in name games. Juno chuckled. Good. I prefer actions too. He gestured toward the arena. 15 minutes. Come ready. The arena filled fast. Students poured into the gallery balconies, eager to watch 2 of Class A's rising stars clash. Even instructors stood along the edge, evaluating quietly. Professor Thorn watched from a private alcove above. Ren stood at one end, cloak unfastened, gloves on. Ash burned faintly beside him, muscles tense but still. Across the field, Juno raised his hand. A shimmer of light, and his beast appeared. A crystal ether fox. It shimmered with pale violet energy, its tail split into 3 glowing arcs. Faster than flame. Lethal with illusion-based tactics. Ren narrowed his eyes. A ranged tactician. Not brute force. Begin, called the instructor. The fox vanished. Ash surged forward, fire trailing. Right Ash. Dodge left, then burst flame high. Ash spun, blasting a sheet of fire upward. A flicker of movement revealed the fox mid-dash, using light refraction to mask its path. Ren activated Beast Echo, letting Ash's senses merge with his. Heat signature, right flank. Spiral now. Ash dropped low, spun, infernal spiral cracked the air. But the fox danced back just in time. Ren's SE trembled. So did Juno's. Juno smiled, hands still calmly at his side. You fight by instinctual response. Efficient. Clean. But you haven't studied the battlefield. Ash lunged again, but the ground shimmered. An illusion circle. Ren's perception blurred. Suddenly he was standing in a mirrored field. Dozens of ether foxes circled him, all identical. Ash hesitated. Don't trust your eyes, Ren said quietly. Trust the link. He closed his own, and felt Ash move, not by sight but weight. Flame pulsed. Connection stabilized. He pointed. There. Ash ignited. Infernal spiral, focused burst. The fire didn't spread. It concentrated, straight through the illusion. The fox yelped as flame connected, real this time. It staggered back, fur singed. Juno raised a hand calmly. "Surrender," he said. "Nicely read." Ren stayed silent as the instructor called the result. Victory, Ren Kairo. After the crowd dispersed, Juno approached again, no longer smiling. "You're dangerous," he said, "but you're not perfect. You took the bait." The illusion circle was layered. "I wanted you to use high-output SE early." Ren nodded. "And I wanted to see how many tricks you'd burn before getting serious." Pause. Then Juno grinned. "Good. Let's keep each other sharp." He turned away, hands behind his back. Lena joined Ren on the stairs. "So, that wasn't just a duel, was it?" "No," Ren said. "It was a message." "To who?" Ren looked toward the sky. "The ones watching from above." That night, inside his sanctum, a second star appeared. It pulsed gently, cooler than flame. A symbol not of power, but of recognition. Ren stood beneath it, wind blowing softly across the volcanic hills of his inner world. Ash curled beside him, quiet. The first rival had come and gone. Others would follow. But the road was clear. And Ren Kairo had just begun his climb. Spiritual power wasn't just about strength. It was about control, how deeply a tamer could channel their energy, how efficiently they could wield it, and how harmoniously it resonated with their beast. Without those elements, power was like water in open hands. Impossible to hold, prone to spill. Ren sat quietly in the front row of Soul Arts Hall, a vast marble room filled with concentric circles etched into the floor, spiritual conduits. They pulsed faintly beneath the students' feet, reacting to their presence like tuning forks. Professor Velen, a robed man with a silver circlet around his forehead, stood at the center. "Today we begin your first true steps into Tamer arts," he said, voice calm but commanding. "You bonded, you've battled. Now, you must learn to refine." He raised his hand. A glyph ignited in the air above his palm. "Soul techniques," he continued, "are the expression of your internal bond, your will, your beast, and your essence. Unlike elemental attacks or basic commands, soul techniques are yours alone. No one else can master them without reshaping their very spirit." The glyph split into two glowing forms. One shaped like a beast's claw, the other a glowing eye. "The two primary paths," Velen said. "Aspect techniques, which amplify your beast traits, and augment techniques, which temporarily awaken parts of your beast within you." Gasps echoed across the room. "Wait, you mean like beast fusion?" someone asked. "No," Velen said sharply. "Fusion is forbidden at this level. What we teach here are echoes, glimpses of shared instinct." He turned to the students. "Each of you will meditate inside a soul circle today. Your beast will enter your subspace. You will attempt resonance breathing for 30 minutes. If you're fortunate, your first technique will whisper back." Ren sat within one of the etched rings. Ash had returned to the Sanctum Core, resting atop a molten plateau. Ren slowed his breathing. Inhale. Like. Exhale. Mirror. His thoughts slid inward, slipping beneath words into that silent world where emotions moved like tides. Ash's presence burned warmly at his core, steady, patient, watching. Then, something shifted. He felt pressure against his chest, like heat swirling too tightly in his lungs. Flame without fire. A name without language. He saw a flicker, a blazing mantle coiled over his shoulders, flowing down his arms like liquid fire. Then it was gone. He gasped as he snapped upright. Velen stood over him. "Success?" the professor asked, arching an eyebrow. Ren nodded. "I think so. I saw armor. Like fire-woven fabric." Velen's expression didn't change, but his voice softened. "That's an augment technique. Rare for a first manifestation." He stood straight again. "Record the sensation. The name may come later. Your soul is still shaping it." That night, Ren sat inside his Sanctum Core beside Ash. The world had changed again. A mountain ridge now bordered the north edge of the domain, sharp, jagged, volcanic. It hadn't been there yesterday. Ash slept in its shadow, faint trails of fire curling around its nostrils. Ren whispered, "You're changing too, aren't you?" Ash opened one eye. Ren stood and walked to the ridge's edge. When he reached the top, he saw something odd. Cracked obsidian eggshells. Dozens of them. Some still glowing faintly, half buried in ash. Ren frowned. "You weren't hatched here, but something like you was." Then he felt it again. Pressure. A ripple beneath the sanctum surface, something stirring far below. Something older than Ash. The next morning, Professor Thorne stopped Ren in the corridor. "You accessed an augment technique on your first try?" he asked, no small measure of disbelief in his tone. Ren nodded. "It's not fully formed, but I saw it." "Name?" Ren shook his head. Still echoing. Thorne narrowed his eyes. "Watch the progression. Flame beasts are volatile, and rare types can awaken. Unstable paths if pushed." Ren didn't flinch. "Ash isn't unstable." "I'm not talking about the beast," Thorne said quietly. "I'm talking about you." Then he turned and walked away. That night Ren tried again. He stood in the center of his sanctum. Ash circled him, fire trailing his steps. Ren focused. "Form within. Don't force it." He inhaled, exhaled, and then, ignition. Flames spiraled up his arms, not burning but embracing. It wrapped around his shoulders like a mantle. His skin glowed faint orange. His vision sharpened. The air felt lighter. Heat no longer suffocated him. It answered him. Technique awakened, ember mantle. A defensive support form. Partial immunity to heat. Brief boost to reaction time. Last 20 seconds. IC cost. He dropped to one knee as the technique faded, drained, but smiling. Ash patted close, eyes glowing warmly. "Thanks," Ren whispered. He looked up. A third star shimmered above, brighter than the others, and somewhere deep below the cracked volcanic ridge, something shifted. Every Beast Tamer had a Sanctum Core, but few ever saw it change. Fewer still survived the evolution. Ren stood still, eyes closed, as his pulse matched the rhythm of the spiritual terrain around him. His sanctum had grown more volatile. Heat shimmered in the air, rivers of obsidian now ran beneath blackened trees, and the stars above, once distant, had begun to flicker like torches nearing dawn. Ash slept atop a new ridge that hadn't existed yesterday. He curled tighter as small embers rose from the stone beneath him. Ren inhaled slowly. "Something's building," he whispered. "Inside me. Inside this place." Then he felt it. A rumble. Not physical. Spiritual. The Sanctum Core vibrated. And something deep beneath the surface, deeper than the magma rivers, cracked. Back in the real world, Professor Velen stood with Headmaster Corin in the observation hall, their eyes on a screen displaying fluctuating SE readings. "Subject, Ren Kairo," Velen said. "Spiritual pressure spike. Unscheduled sanctum mutation." Corin folded his arms. "How long since his first bond?" 2 weeks. Corin raised an eyebrow. "That's impossible. Subspace awakenings take months." "Unless," Velen glanced at the chart, "unless he was never dormant to begin with." Corin's gaze sharpened. "Run the latent compatibility test." Quietly. The next morning, Ren arrived for a practical lesson only to find the schedule changed. No combat drills. No dungeon runs. Instead, a field trip. To the subspace refractor chamber. The name alone sent whispers buzzing through the class. Lena tilted her head as they walked. "Isn't that a faculty-only cultivation lab?" Kresh snorted. "What's a bunch of first years doing there? Are we getting extra credit or just weird homework?" Ren didn't speak, but something about this felt directed. The chamber sat on the far end of campus, a quiet steel dome carved into a hillside. Inside, the room was pitch black, save for a single circular platform inscribed with glowing blue rings. Professor Thorne stood beside it, arms folded. "This is the resonance mirror," he said simply. "Each of you will step inside, send your beast into subspace, and allow your soul to reflect back what lies at your core." Lena raised her hand. "What's the point?" Thorne's eyes narrowed. "To see if your sanctum is truly yours, or just borrowed power." Students went in one by one. Some emerged pale, others glowing with pride. When it was Ren's turn, the silence grew thick. He stepped into the circle. Ash vanished into the sanctum. The blue rings began to pulse, then flared red. The room dimmed. A projection shimmered above Ren's head, not of Ash but of something older. A silhouette, serpentine, massive, coiled beneath mountains of flame. Gasps echoed from the watching crowd. "What is that? A mutation?" "No. A resonance echo. He's linked to something dormant." Ren's heart pounded, but he didn't break focus. He knew it was there. He'd felt it in his dreams. Something beneath his sanctum watching, waiting. When the test ended, Thorne didn't speak, but his gaze lingered on Ren a moment too long. Later, in the corridor, Juno stepped beside him. "You triggered a shadow echo," he said quietly. "That doesn't happen to low-level tamers." Ren didn't answer. Juno leaned slightly closer. You're walking a dangerous path, Kairo. Beasts evolve. Sanctums expand. But when they grow too fast, sometimes something else comes through with them. Then he walked away, leaving Ren in the hall with only his thoughts, and the echo of flame still flickering in his chest. That night, inside his sanctum core, the ground split. Not violently. Naturally. A deep, circular chasm opened at the far edge of the volcanic ridge, too deep to see the bottom. Mist flowed out of it like breath. Ash stood at the edge, staring down, unmoving. Ren approached and knelt beside him. You felt it too. The drake didn't answer, but it didn't look away. Neither did Ren, because somehow he knew. That wasn't just a hole in the land. It was a door, and whatever waited beyond it had seen him first. Dreams in the sanctum didn't feel like dreams. They felt real, closer to memory than illusion. A place where thought dissolved and only soul remained. Ren didn't remember falling asleep that night. Only the sound of wind over fire and a heartbeat like a distant drum. When he opened his eyes, he stood at the edge of the chasm again. But this time it wasn't empty. Red mist swirled upward in slow spirals, glowing faintly with embers. Stone pillars jutted from the walls like ribs of some ancient beast, and from the bottom, something pulsed. A light, warm and constant, like the breath of a sleeping dragon. Ash stood beside him, silent, tail lowered. But he wasn't glowing. He was dim, like a shadow of himself. Ren blinked. The ground beneath them cracked. And then, he fell. No wind, no scream, just falling. Endless. Until he landed, not with force but stillness. The world around him was black stone and molten veins. A massive temple buried beneath the land. And in the center, a colossal serpent. Coiled sleeping. Covered in cooled magma. Its body stretched around the chamber, scales dark crimson and matte black. Its eyes were closed, but its presence watched him. Ren couldn't move. He couldn't speak. But the serpent did not need words. You hear me now. The voice pressed into his skull like thunder behind a veil. Flame bearer. Ember soul. Descendant of the scorched line. Ren staggered. What are you? You stand in your own shadow. The serpent's eye opened, just one. A slit pupil. Burning gold. And in that gaze Ren saw flashes, not memories but impressions. A world devoured by storms. Beasts that once ruled the sky. A war of flame against frost, light against silence. A flame that refused to die. Then the serpent spoke again. The one beside you is not the end. He is the key. Ren's chest burned. He looked down. Ash was at his feet. Small. Quiet. But in his eyes, the same fire. Ren gasped awake, drenched in sweat. The sanctum air shimmered faintly. The stars above were gone, replaced by a blood-red aurora curling across the sky like serpents. Ash sat nearby watching. But he didn't approach. Ren sat up slowly. What was that? He whispered. Ash didn't respond. But Ren already knew. Not a dream. Not a vision. The summons. Something in the chasm was stirring, and the moment Ren had stepped into it, something had seen itself in him. Back on campus, Ren kept to himself. Lena noticed. So did Juno. But neither pressed him. Professor Thorne, however, stopped him after class. You look like a man who saw something he shouldn't, Thorne said. Ren stayed quiet. Thorne nodded once. Good. Keep it that way. Ren frowned. You knew this would happen? I suspected. Anyone with a rare type beast who awakens this quickly? Well, the world likes to test them early. Ren studied him. What was it? Thorne's expression turned grim. Long ago there were beasts that didn't evolve from mana. They birthed it. Lived not in the beast veil but beneath the surface of the blue planet itself. Some were sealed. Some were hunted. Some were forgotten. Ren's throat tightened. And if one of them wakes? Thorne looked away. Then we'd better hope its tamer is worthy. That night, inside his sanctum, Ren stood before the chasm again. Ash walked beside him this time. No words. Just fire. And in the distance that golden eye. Open once more. You'll enter together. You'll leave together. Or not at all. Those were the only words Instructor Thorne gave them before sealing the gate. The team assessment dungeon was no simulation. This wasn't a training chamber or supervised exercise. This was a live veil rift, an unstable pocket of spiritual matter teeming with wild beasts and real consequences. Only authorized because the students had finally crossed the minimum SE control threshold. Ren stood at the front of the team as the stone gate sealed behind them. Lena stood to his left, her sylvan hair shifting anxiously. Kresh stood to the right, his stone-backed torso plodding forward without emotion. Ash walked silently beside Ren, not growling, just watching. Mist drifted through the dungeon's first chamber. The air smelled of wet roots and distant ozone. Ruins jutted from the moss like forgotten teeth. Veil rifts sparkled on the ceiling like cracks in the sky. Ren crouched low. "There," he said. "Heat signatures. Six-legged. Moving in circles. Veil warped behavior." Lena adjusted her gloves. "Any plan?" "We bait, burn, and break," Ren said. "Lena, you draw first." "Kresh, defense wall mid-path." Kresh scoffed. "Why do you always take lead like it's natural?" "Because no one else does," Ren replied flatly. "Now move." Kresh bit back a retort. The first wave was easy. Mirehounds, low-tier pack-based with toxic breath. Lena baited. Ash struck from above with infernal spiral, breaking their formation. Kresh finally earned his keep by shielding Lena from a flanking strike, then grumbling about it the whole time. By the third chamber they were moving like a unit. Not perfectly, but enough. Then the ground shifted. Literally. The fourth chamber was wrong, too quiet, too symmetrical. Stone tiles arranged in spirals with no cover. Ren's eyes narrowed. This isn't a combat room. Lena tilted her head. What is it then? Kresh stepped onto the center tile. Sank. A pulse of light rippled outward. Trap chamber. The walls exploded outward as a pack of phase scarabs surged from cracks. Dozens, maybe more. Small, fast, coordinated. Not natural here. Ren cursed inwardly. Ash. Defensive shell. Lena, fall back. Ash ignited a flame ring around the team, but it wouldn't last. Ren saw it instantly. Too many. Too fast. Too controlled. He reached for, then froze. In the corner of his perception, a flicker. A command glyph, hidden beneath the tiles. His heart sank. This isn't wild. It's planted. Someone's manipulating the room. A test? A sabotage? Did it matter? Lena cried out as a scarab clipped her side. Her hair barely shielded her in time. Kresh shouted from behind, shielding his beast. "I can't hold much longer." The flame ring began to collapse. And in that moment, Ren heard it again. Not out loud. Inside. That voice. "Let me burn them." The fire inside his chest surged, uncalled. He felt the ground beneath him respond. The chasm inside his sanctum flickered. Something deep pulsed upward. Ash stood motionless. Then his eyes shifted, not amber. Gold. Ren's breath caught. Ash was channeling more than his flame. Something else was waking. Ren grit his teeth. If he gave in, if he unleashed it, there would be no hiding what stirred inside Ash's bloodline. But if he didn't, Lena might not make it out. Ren made his decision. He pressed his palm to Ash's side. Controlled burst. One ring. Nothing more. Ash's body tensed, and then ignited. But not like before. This flame wasn't red. It was white. Silent. Hotter than anything Ren had felt. Ash spun once, silent spiral, and released a flash of searing light. All sound vanished. Then returned like a breath pulled back into the world. The phase scarabs were gone, vaporized in an instant. Ash stood panting, smoke trailing from his body. Ren dropped to one knee. His SE reserves were nearly drained. But Lena was safe. Kresh was still standing. And the path ahead was quiet again. Later, in the extraction chamber, the team stood in silence as medics scanned for injuries. Kresh muttered, "You did something back there." Ren didn't reply. Lena looked at him quietly, unsure what she'd seen, but certain it hadn't been normal. That night, Ren stood in his sanctum core at the edge of the chasm. The aurora overhead had turned gold and white, the sky rippling as if reacting to something deep below. Ash curled nearby, exhausted, but alive. Ren watched the depths, and somewhere below, the flame serpent turned in its sleep. Not ready to wake, but closer now. So much closer. Lena Vale was the kind of girl who smiled even when she lost. Not because she didn't care, but because if she didn't smile, she might fall apart. It was late. Most students were asleep. The training field behind the alchemy greenhouses was empty, except for her. She sat in the grass, hugging her knees, the wind teasing the ends of her red-orange hair. Her sylvan hair, Mira, nuzzled her legs softly, sensing her pain. "I'm fine," Lena whispered. "I'm always fine." But Mira didn't move, and Lena's shoulders trembled slightly. The dungeon test hadn't left visible wounds. But that wasn't the kind of damage that mattered. It was the way Ren had moved, without hesitation. The way his flame had shifted, Too hot, too silent, too absolute. And the way she'd been helpless. She hated that feeling. It reminded her too much of... No, she didn't want to remember. Not tonight. She closed her eyes. And it came anyway. A memory. Not violent. Just still. A cold house. A quiet father. A scarred beast lying in the garden, unmoving. Her first beast. Her first loss. She was 9. She had cried for days. But no one had come. So she learned not to cry anymore. I'm not weak, she whispered. Mira looked up at her. And she broke. Just a little. One tear. Then another. I trained so hard. I did everything right. So why do I still feel small next to people like him? The wind answered with silence. Because you compare yourself too early. Lena froze. Ren stood at the edge of the field, arms crossed, expression unreadable. How long were you? Long enough. He stepped closer, then sat on the grass a few feet away. Not too close. Ash padded behind him, curling up silently. I wasn't following you, he said. I came here to think. Saw your SE signature. You weren't hiding it. She wiped her eyes quickly. You didn't see anything. Ren raised an eyebrow, then said nothing. Lena gave up. Fine. Maybe I cried. 1 tear. Maybe 2. He shrugged. Crying is a pressure valve. It keeps the core from cracking. Lena looked at him, startled. You cry? No, he said flatly. Then after a pause, but maybe I should have. That silence lingered between them. Not uncomfortable. Just real. You were amazing in the dungeon, Lena said eventually. You saved us. Again. I nearly burned through my core doing it, Ren replied. And what I used wasn't something I'm supposed to show. Lena tilted her head. It didn't feel dangerous. Ren looked away. It wasn't mine. Not fully. She didn't ask more. But she reached out just once and touched his arm. Thanks, she said. He looked down at her hand, then nodded. You're stronger than you think, he said. But you measure yourself against things that aren't yours to carry yet. She blinked. What's that supposed to mean? He stood. You'll understand, he said, when your beast changes. When you do. Back in her dorm that night, Lena lay awake. Mira curled on her pillow, ears flicking softly. And Lena stared at the ceiling, not crying anymore, just thinking. In her sanctum core for the first time in weeks, the wind blew differently. The trees shimmered silver in the moonlight, and far in the distance, she saw something watching her, not with malice, with patience, waiting for her to be ready. Pain wasn't always physical. Sometimes it whispered, pulled, stripped, and if you weren't careful it remade you. Ren knelt in the resonance chamber. Around him, ancient spirit glyphs floated like slow embers, tracing invisible paths through the air. Ash circled nearby, eyes glowing faintly, flames simmering just beneath his skin. Today was different. Not training, not theory. Today was the first soul resonance trial, a ritual few first years ever attempted. A full merge of perception, energy, and instinct between tamer and beast. Even minor success could double a bond's depth. Failure could fracture it. Forever. Professor Thorne watched from beyond the ritual barrier, arms folded. You sure about this, Kairo? Ren nodded once. No one's forcing you. I know. Thorne grunted. Don't burn yourself hollow. Ren smiled faintly. I'll burn brighter. Ash let out a low, agreeing rumble. The resonance glyphs flared to life. The air thickened, heavy with potential. Ren closed his eyes. Inhale. Like. Exhale. Mirror. The mantra beat through his bones. Ash's presence loomed larger, no longer just beside him but within him. Hunger. Motion. Oh, not separate. Together. He opened his eyes, and the world had changed. He stood not on the chamber floor but within an endless field of molten glass. Above, the aurora twisted, threads of red and gold weaving into a living tapestry. Ash stood before him. But not small. Not gentle. Massive. Towering. A flame drake grown beyond mortal size, wearing coils of magma like armor. And in Ash's eyes, challenge. Are you ready to bear the other side of your flame? The voice echoed in Ren's head, not Ash's normal thoughts but something deeper. Ren stepped forward. No hesitation. Ash lunged. The first clash wasn't physical. It was spiritual. Pressure smashed into Ren's chest, hammering his soul's defenses. He staggered. Flames raced around his ankles, trying to drag him down. Ash circled him, not attacking but testing. Waiting. Ren gritted his teeth. Not fear. Not doubt. Just will. He inhaled sharply, forcing his core to stabilize. Flames coiled into his arms, wrapping like armor, not burning but empowering. Ember mantle, full activation. He moved forward, closing the distance. Ash roared. The ground split apart beneath them. But Ren didn't flinch. Their souls collided. Fire against fire. Instinct against instinct. For one heartbeat, Ren saw everything through Ash's senses. The hunger to run, to fight, to soar, to protect, to destroy. But he didn't drown. He steered. Ash reared back, then bowed his head low, flames spiraling around his shoulders. And in that moment, the bond deepened. Not master and beast. Not controller and controlled. Partners. Back in the resonance chamber, the glyphs flashed gold. Professor Thorne straightened slightly. Well now, he muttered. That's not normal. Inside the circle, Ren's body pulsed faintly with light. Ash crouched protectively at his side, glowing ember patterns spiraling down his scales. Both Tamer and Beast breathed in perfect rhythm. When Ren opened his eyes again, the world returned. The chamber. The glyphs. The waiting silence. Ash stood beside him, still panting lightly, but not exhausted. Evolved. Connected. Ren rose slowly to his feet. The flames coiling around him faded back into his core, quiet but waiting. He met Thorne's gaze. Report, Thorne said simply. Ren smiled slightly. Soul resonance achieved. Later that evening, Ren sat alone on the dormitory rooftop, legs dangling over the edge. Ash lay sprawled beside him, gazing up at the stars. The city lights flickered far below, a sea of quiet golden lanterns. Ren sipped from a flask of cool water, still feeling the echo of the resonance pulsing through his chest. Ash was quieter too, no longer fidgeting or growling at every breeze. They didn't need words. They were synced now. Properly. Truly. Somewhere deeper inside Ren's sanctum, the volcanic terrain shifted again. From the heart of the chasm, a second heartbeat answered his own. Not hostile. Not urgent. Just aware. Awake. And across campus, in a dim study lined with rune-etched scrolls, Headmaster Korin reviewed Ren's resonance report with narrowed eyes. Beside him stood a figure cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a silver-etched hood. You were right, the figure said. He's not ordinary. Korin nodded. Prepare the next test. Back in his sanctum, Ren looked across the molten river, his reflection wavering. Step by step, he whispered. Ash flicked his tail once in agreement. The climb had only just begun. It started as a whisper. A strange wind, heavy with the scent of iron and ash, brushing across East Oran's rooftops. Most students slept through it. Ren didn't. He sat upright in bed, heart pounding without reason. Ash stirred near the window, eyes slitted, growling low in his throat. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Across the academy, alarms began to wail, long, low sirens built into the old stonework. Not the shrill training warnings. The real ones. Beast surge alert. Ren was already throwing on his jacket, Ash leaping onto his shoulders in a burst of heat. Outside, chaos unfurled. Dozens of students stumbled into the courtyards, beasts summoned reflexively. Above them, the sky rippled. Small rifts opened across the grounds, spewing low-tier monsters. Mistwolves, bladebeaks, shard rats. Creatures twisted by unstable veil energies. Normally, surges like this happen near wilderness zones. Never inside academy walls. Ren's fists tightened. This isn't random. Ash snarled, fire leaking from his scales. Professor Thorne's voice barked from the main quad, amplified by a projection glyph. All first years. Defensive perimeter around the main towers. Third years will push containment. Do not stray. Ren broke into a sprint, weaving through scattering students toward the east wall where breaches clustered. Lena fell into step beside him, Mira bounding at her heels. Any idea what's happening? She shouted over the rising howls. Ren shook his head once. Doesn't matter. We hold. The first clash came fast. A pack of Veil's talkers, cat-like beasts with melting shadow forms, lunged from the mist. Ren didn't hesitate. Ash burst forward, fire spiraling outward in a controlled flare. Infernal spiral. Two stalkers evaporated mid-leap. Lena's Sylvian hair summoned a wind barrier, forcing the third into a roll. Ren moved forward. No panic. No wasted motion. Ash pivoted to intercept. The courtyard stones cracked under the weight of their combined strike. But it wasn't just small packs. From the east breach, something larger emerged. A Veil-born alpha. An 8-legged beast with armor plates along its spine, dripping venom from serrated tusks. Too strong for most first years. Far too fast. Lena froze for a fraction of a second. Ren stepped between her and the alpha without thinking. Lena, cover right. I'll break the advance. Ash flared brighter, embers trailing from his teeth. Ren dropped low, feeling the bond between them pulse deeper than ever before. The alpha roared. Ash roared back. And Ren moved. Ember mantle ignited, flames wrapping his body in a protective glow. He didn't dodge the alpha's first charge. He met it. Ash blurred in, launching a high flame arc that seared across the alpha's side, forcing it to recoil. The courtyard stones cracked under the pressure. Ren slid forward, focusing his SE into a singular point. If he timed it wrong, he'd overextend and collapse. If he timed it right, Ash, focus spiral mid-strike. Break its stance. Ash howled as flame condensed along his tail. He struck at the alpha's knee joint with surgical force. The beast staggered. Lena shouted something. Ren couldn't hear. The alpha raised its massive claws, and Ren saw it. The opening. He poured the last of his SE into one movement. Silent spiral. Not heat. Not explosion. Pure force. Ash and Ren struck as one, a synchronized burst of fire and will. The alpha shuddered, then collapsed with a thunderous crash. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of dying flames and the distant clash of other fights. Students stared, some in awe, some in fear. They had seen it. Not just strength, something else. The way Ash's fire burned too hot. The way Ren moved as if the battlefield bent around him. Juno Crest stood atop the outer stairs, arms folded, watching. Professor Thorne arrived seconds later, surveying the courtyard. His gaze locked on Ren. No words passed, but Ren knew. There would be consequences. Not now. Later. The academy pushed back the surge after 2 hours of fighting. Casualties were minimal. Minor injuries, a few broken bonds that would take weeks to heal. The older students celebrated. The younger ones shivered quietly. Ren didn't stay for the debriefing. He sat on the dorm rooftop again, overlooking the battered grounds. Ash slept beside him, chest rising and falling slowly. Lena joined him, limping slightly. She didn't speak. Neither did he. Words weren't needed. Not tonight. Inside Ren's sanctum, the volcanic skies churned. The molten rivers boiled higher. And far below the chasm floor, something began to climb. No longer sleeping. Not anymore. After the beast surged, the academy grounds stayed strangely quiet. Too quiet. As if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next tremor. Ren trained alone in the eastern grove. Ash circled him at a lazy pace, flicking his tail through pockets of mist still lingering from the surge. The earth here was cracked, scarred from too much spiritual turbulence. Ren stretched slowly, feeling the weight of the week pressing against his muscles. Focus. Don't rush. Soul resonance had deepened his bond with Ash. But it also frayed him slightly, like a sword honed too sharp, one misstep away from breaking. From the grove's edge, Lena approached with careful steps. You're pushing yourself again, she said. Ren didn't reply at first. Ash let out a soft puff of smoke, nudging Ren's leg with his snout. I have to, Ren said finally. There's not much time. Lena frowned. Time for what? Ren didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Only that something inside him whispered, hurry. Prepare. Suddenly Ash's head snapped up. Ren followed his gaze. The trees beyond the grove rustled, not with wind. With intent. Ash growled, flames licking at his claws. Ren shifted into a defensive stance instinctively. Not wild beasts, Ren muttered. No. Something smarter. The air tensed. A shadow moved between the trees, low and massive. And then it stepped into view. A crimson-eyed howler. Twice the size of a normal veil beast, fur black as tar, muscles coiled like springs. Its eyes burned a deep, unnatural red, signs of intense spiritual corruption. Worse, it wasn't just moving through the academy borderlands by accident. It was tracking. Hunting him. Lena gasped, reaching for her beast sigil. No, Ren said sharply. Stay back. Ash flared, growling low. The howler didn't attack immediately. Paced, watching Wang. Then its jaws split open, and it howled. Not just sound. Force. The very air shook, the ground trembling beneath its feet. Ren gritted his teeth. Here it comes. The howler lunged, faster than its size should allow. Ash darted forward, intercepting with a blast of searing flame. Infernal spiral. But the howler twisted midair, claws raking across Ash's defense line, absorbing the impact with brute resilience. Ren moved instinctively, activating Ember Mantle, flames coiling around his body in a defensive shroud. He sidestepped the howler's follow-up strike, using Ash's movement to bait it into overextending. Left. Now. Ash swept low, clipping the howler's rear leg. It stumbled, briefly. Then righted itself with a growl that sent shudders up Ren's spine. Too much power for a normal corrupted beast. The fight dragged on, minutes that felt like hours. Every strike Ash landed, the howler returned twice as hard. Ren could feel his spiritual energy draining dangerously fast. He needed a plan. Fast. He inhaled sharply. Focused the bond. No wasted energy. He locked eyes with Ash. No words. Just intent. Ash flared brighter. Condensed. The flames coiling around Ash's body compacted, sinking inward until only thin lines of molten glow traced his limbs. The howler lunged for the final strike. Ren waited. Just another heartbeat. Another breath. No. Ash, silent spiral. Point impact, base throat. Ash vanished in a blur of coiled flame. The world seemed to snap into slow motion. The howler twisted, too slow. Ash struck upward, claws wreathed in compressed fire, piercing the beast's exposed underside with devastating force. A shockwave rippled through the clearing. The howler shrieked, collapsing onto its side, limbs convulsing. Ash landed lightly, breathing hard, smoke rising from his scales. Ren exhaled slowly. Done. The silence that followed felt unnatural. Wrong. Ash stiffened. Ren turned and saw him. A figure, standing beyond the broken trees, watching. Cloaked in dark robes, face hidden by a half mask of burnished silver. The figure said nothing, did nothing, but Ren could feel it. The weight of their gaze. A presence heavier than any howler. Then, without a word, the figure turned and disappeared into the mist. Ren didn't chase. He stood in the clearing, breathing hard, heart thundering. Ash nudged his side, low and steady. Lena approached carefully, eyes wide. What was that? Ren shook his head. But deep inside he already knew. Someone was watching him. Someone not from the academy. Someone who understood the flame beginning to wake inside him. And they weren't finished yet. Not by a long shot. Later, in the quiet of his Sanctum Core, Ren stared across the molten plains, watching the stars ripple and sway. Ash slept nearby, tail flicking through the heated air. And from the depths of the chasm, a golden eye opened again. Wider. Hungrier. Waiting. The summons came at dawn. A simple envelope. Wax stamped with the sigil of the National Beast Tamer Examination Board, a spiraling phoenix crowned by 5 stars. Ren stood outside the administration tower, the chill of morning fog clinging to his jacket. Ash perched on the stone railing beside him, tail flicking idly. The campus was unusually quiet. Word hadn't spread yet. It would. In his hand, the letter burned against his skin, heavy in its silence. Lena found him first. She skidded to a halt, half-dressed, hair still wild from sleep. "You got it too?" she gasped, holding up her own envelope. Ren raised an eyebrow. "You doubt yourself?" Lena flushed. "No, well, maybe a little, okay, a lot." Ash huffed, sending a small puff of smoke into the morning air. Ren cracked a rare smile. Just a small one. By mid-morning, the courtyard filled with murmurs. Roughly 30 students out of the original 100 had received summons. An even smaller number had qualified for direct advancement candidacy, an elite track that allowed Beast Tamers to skip minor regional trials and apply straight to institutions like the Beast Tamer University of Azure. Ren was one of them. So was Juno Crest, and barely Lena Vale. Kresh did not make the cut. He didn't speak to anyone after the results were posted. Not that Ren could blame him. The path forward wasn't kind. It was ruthless. That evening, Professor Thorne held a private briefing for the candidates. "You'll be representing East Orin at the national examinations," he said, voice steady. "It's not a guarantee. Azura accepts less than 5% of applicants." He let that sink in. "But," Thorne continued, "those with strong sanctum evolution, rare beast bonds, or unusual cultivation signatures will be prioritized." He looked directly at Ren. Ren didn't blink. He already knew. The hidden fire inside him, the blood of the serpent, wasn't a gift. It was a weight, an expectation, a target. After the meeting, Ren lingered at the edge of the field, watching stars begin to bloom above the darkening horizon. Ash curled around his shoulders, smaller when he rested, almost weightless. "You're ready," Ren said quietly. Ash didn't respond aloud. He didn't have to. Their bond thrummed strong and clear. Juno approached, hands in pockets, his fox trailing silently behind him. He stopped a few feet away, staring up at the stars too. "Azura won't be like this place," he said. Ren nodded. "I know." Juno turned slightly. "There's real competition there. Real monsters. Students with ancient lineages, engineered beasts, blood contracts." His eyes narrowed. "Some of them aren't entirely human anymore." Ren looked back at him, calm. "I'm not here to compare blood." Juno smiled thinly. "No, you're here to win." Neither of them said it aloud. But both understood. The next battlefield would be different. Sharper. Deeper. Unforgiving. That night, Ren sat in his Sanctum Core one last time before departure. The world he had shaped, the rivers of fire, the volcanic plains, the molten cliffs, stood silent beneath a shimmering night sky. A fourth star had appeared overhead, brighter than the others, a constellation forming. Ash sat at the chasm's edge, tail coiled around his legs. Ren knelt beside him. The golden eye below the chasm glowed faintly, a silent promise of trials yet to come. Ren spoke into the warm wind. "I'll forge it myself." He didn't mean just power. He meant destiny. He meant everything. And somewhere in the depths the serpent stirred, smiling. The train hummed under Ren's boots, a low, steady rumble that matched the pulse of the engines driving them toward destiny. Beyond the window, endless fields of silver mist stretched into the horizon. Wild Vale lands, untamed and heavy with spiritual energy. Ash lay curled at Ren's side, his scales dimmed to a faint ember glow for the journey. Across the aisle, Lena dozed with her forehead against the glass, her silvine hair twitching its ears even in sleep. The early morning departure had drained everyone. Everyone except Ren. He couldn't sleep. Not with what waited ahead. The Novice League was held in the Tarn Rift Basin, a series of layered dungeons formed by multiple collapsed veil zones. Unstable. Unpredictable. Deadly. Only Tamers under the age of 18 were allowed to compete. And fewer than half would emerge with enough points to earn Elite League invitation, the golden ticket to Azura University. Failure didn't mean death. But it did mean disappearing into obscurity. Forgotten. Juno Crest slid into the seat across from Ren without asking. His crystal ether fox climbed into his lap, curling into a neat silver coil. "You're too quiet," Juno said. "It's not healthy." Ren shrugged. "Thinking. About?" Ren stared out the window. "What's waiting in the rift?" Juno smirked. "Monsters. Glory. Probably betrayal." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "And if the rumors are true, maybe something worse." Ren met his eyes calmly. "If it comes, I'll face it." Juno chuckled. "Good. I'd hate to climb to the top without a decent rival." They arrived at the Tarn Rift outpost by late afternoon. It was nothing like East Oran. No towering walls. No shining banners. Just a battered collection of stone towers and shield arrays flickering against the permanent veil mist. Vendors sold beast crystals from wagons. Mercenaries lounged at the gates. Tamer Guild officials barked orders through loudspeakers. Above it all, a massive holographic board displayed the current league standings. At the very top, number 1, Casendrail, rank, silver, points, 1025. Ren narrowed his eyes. Casendrail. A name he had heard whispered already. A rising star. Someone who wasn't just playing the league to win, he was dominating. And Casen wasn't alone. Other names. Other monsters. Waiting. Watching. An official in black armor approached their group. "First years from East Oran?" he asked. Professor Thorne nodded. The man handed over a thick packet. "Welcome to the Tarn Rift Novice League. Your first round is tomorrow morning. Survival format. Dungeon elimination. Single entry. No replacements." He paused, eyeing the students. "Survive 48 hours in the active rift zones. Secure beast cores or rank kills to earn points. Top 50% advance." He smiled thinly. "Bottom 50%, go home." That night, Ren lay awake in the barracks. Ash slept near his feet, steam rising softly from his nostrils. Lena turned fitfully in the bunk below. Even Juno, usually composed, checked his beast crystal 3 times before settling. The rift outside pulsed. Alive. Hungry. Ren closed his eyes. Tomorrow it would begin. Not just the battle for survival. A test of who he was becoming. And in the depths of his Sanctum Core, the golden eye blinked once. Awake. The rift gate shimmered like broken glass in the morning mist. Students lined up in their assigned teams, some shifting nervously, others trying to mask the tension with forced bravado. Ren stood silently at the third launch platform, his beast crystal pulsing steadily against his chest. Ash circled at his feet, tail low, alert. Across the field, Lena tightened the straps on her gauntlets. Kresh, reluctantly assigned to their trio again, grumbled under his breath. "You know," Kresh muttered, "if the League organizers actually cared about our safety, they wouldn't drop us into an unstable rift with no exit plan." Ren didn't reply, because Kresh was right. And that was exactly the point. Above the field, a voice crackled through a loudspeaker room. "Attention League novices, the Tarn Rift elimination round will begin in 3 minutes. Objective: secure beast cores, survive environmental hazards, and maintain spiritual stability for 48 hours. Warning: Rift environmental stability is low. Anomalous conditions are probable." Another student too rose over cursed under his breath. Anomalous conditions? That was code for, the dungeon might collapse around you. Ash growled low. Ren placed a hand lightly on his head. "We'll adapt," he said quietly. Ash flicked his tail once, acknowledging the unspoken plan. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Ren slowed his breathing. 7, 6, 5. Ash's SE signature locked perfectly with his own. 4, 3, 2. The rift gate flared and shattered. Instead of a smooth teleport, the world ripped sideways. Ren barely had time to brace before the ground vanished beneath him. He fell, not into darkness, into light. Burning, fractured light. Ash howled beside him, spiraling through the unstable veil stream. Ren grabbed for the bond tether, thin, fraying under the rift's turbulence. Hold, then, impact. He slammed into hard ground, rolling twice before staggering upright. Ash landed beside him with a thud, hissing, flames flaring defensively. Ren blinked, trying to make sense of the warped terrain. They weren't in a normal dungeon. They stood on a series of floating stone platforms, suspended above a mist-filled abyss. The air crackled with spiritual tension. Ruptured earth floated in jagged, broken chains overhead. Rift instability at its worst. And no visible exit. Lena appeared 2 platforms away, bruised but standing. She waved weakly. Mira the hair clung to her side. Kresh wasn't visible. Yet. Ren narrowed his eyes. Ash sniffed the air, growling. Movement in the mist. Fast. Predatory. Ren didn't waste time. Lena. Form up. Defensive wedge. She nodded, forcing her body into a fighting stance despite her limp. The mist boiled outward. And the first wave came. Mist reavers. Semi-spiritual beasts, formed from the collapsed energy of unstable rifts. Part shadow, part hunger. 3 materialized on the nearest stone slab, their bodies rippling with distorted light. Ren felt his blood cool. Mist reavers weren't supposed to spawn this early in a League elimination. They were late-stage threats. Something's wrong. But thinking wouldn't save them. Action would. Ash exploded forward at his command, fire erupting in precise arcs. Infernal spiral. The flames cleaved through the first reaver, only for it to reform seconds later, its body stitched back together by the surrounding mist. Ash circled, growling deeper. Lena launched a wind pulse, but it barely slowed the second reaver's approach. Ren moved. Fast. He activated Ember Mantle, feeling the surge of heat wrap his limbs. Not raw force. Core strike. Break their tether to the rift. He waited until the first reaver lunged, then sidestepped smoothly, pressing 2 fingers to its chest, and pushed SE directly into its core. The reaver exploded into smoke. Gone. Ren stumbled back slightly, panting. Ash caught him with a quick bump of the shoulder. The second reaver shifted, only to collapse under a coordinated burst from Ash and Lena's hair. The third hesitated, wavered, and retreated into the mist. Ren didn't relax. Not for a second. Because reavers didn't retreat unless they were herding prey. Sure enough, moments later, the mist thickened ahead. Heavy footsteps echoed through the broken rift world. A massive shape moved into view. Not a reaver. Not a wild beast. A rift-born warden. Ren swore under his breath. Rift-born wardens were territorial guardians formed when a dungeon core fractured. Usually mindless. Always deadly. This one dragged a chain of crystal ore behind it, its body covered in molten glyphs and broken armor. A Tier 3 threat. Far too strong for first years. Ash growled louder, flames building. Ren set his jaw. "We can't outrun it," he said. "Then what do we do?" Lena asked. Ren looked across the broken stones, the swirling mist, the unstable platforms. He smiled grimly. We don't run. We break it. The warden roared, shattering nearby platforms with sheer sound. Ash leapt onto Ren's shoulder, fire boiling from his scales. Ren inhaled slowly, locking his senses onto the beast's rhythm. One heartbeat at a time. The rift had broken. The rules had shattered. But he hadn't. Not yet. Not ever. The rift-born warden charged. The ground shook with every step, shards of broken platforms tumbling into the mist below. Ash flared beside Ren, heat pulsing off his body in waves. Lena gritted her teeth, Mira huddled at her side, wind magic coiling tightly around them. Ren stepped forward, slow, deliberate, facing down a beast twice his size with only the calmness born from choice. Formation Delta. Ren called sharply. Lena didn't hesitate. She moved to the left flank, preparing wide-area suppression. Ash and Ren would go frontal, keeping the warden locked. Myra's air burst would slow its footing. 3 points of pressure. One target. Break the beast before it crushed them. It wasn't a fair fight. But fair didn't matter anymore. The warden howled, a sound like stone grinding against broken glass, and swung a massive arm plated with half-melted steel. Ash dashed low, avoiding the first blow. Ren followed, ember mantle activating. Flames wrapping his arms, feet light across the cracked stone. Lena disrupted its balance. A gust of compressed air hammered the warden's right knee, just enough to stagger its next step. Ash leapt, flames spiraling around his body. Silent spiral. A precision strike aimed at the exposed joint. Impact. The warden roared, sinking to one side. Ren pressed the advantage. He surged a sea through his core, sinking with Ash. The world blurred into instinct and intent. Every heartbeat a calculation. Every breath a command. He dodged another swing, spun inside the warden's reach, and slammed his palm against a weak point in its crystal-wrapped ribs. Spiritual shock injection. A minor technique, but enough to splinter its cohesion. The warden reeled back, howling, the rift energy binding it starting to fray at the edges. We're winning? Lena shouted. For a moment, just a moment, Ren allowed himself to believe it. Then, a flash, a flicker in the mist. Something moved. Fast. Wrong. Ash stiffened, growling sharply. Ren turned. Too late. A spiritual disruptor shard slammed into Ash's side, shattering against his scales in a burst of violet light. Ash cried out, staggering. Ren's connection faltered, the resonance link spasming painfully in his chest. Sabotage. Not an accident. An attack. From a human. From inside the league. The warden saw the opening. It roared and surged forward. Lena screamed a warning. Ren moved. He dropped low, grabbing Ash and rolling clear just as a slab of stone shattered where they had been standing. Breathless. Off balance. Half blind. But alive. Where did it come from? Lena cried. Ren gritted his teeth, scanning the mist. He couldn't see the attacker. Not yet. And the warden wasn't waiting. It lumbered forward, slower now, but no less deadly. Ash coughed weakly, flames flickering erratically along his spine. Ren clenched his fists. If we falter now, it's over. He forced his breathing steady. Choices. Fast. New plan, he barked. Lena full suppression, no gaps. Ash and I will bait it into the fractured platform. Lena hesitated, then nodded fiercely. Ash wobbled to his feet, growling despite his injuries. Ren reached out, brushing the drake's side. You're stronger than this, he whispered. Stronger than whoever threw that cheap shot. Ash's flames flared briefly, and Ren smiled grimly. They moved. Fast. Ren led the warden across the crumbling platforms, baiting its strikes, staying just inches ahead of death. Lena launched compressed air bursts, not to damage, but to nudge. Little shifts. Little imbalances. The warden roared in frustration, its footing slipping with every step. Closer. Closer to the fracture line where the rift energy pulsed most violently. Ren timed it. One final sidestep. Ash ignited. A focused, low burst aimed directly at the weakened stone. The platform beneath the warden gave way with a crack like a lightning strike. The beast dropped, screaming, dragging chunks of stone and rift mist down with it into the endless void. Gone. Silence fell. Ash collapsed to one knee. Ren knelt beside him, pouring what little spiritual energy he had left into a basic restoration pulse. Ash's breathing steadied, but Ren's mind was already elsewhere, in the mist beyond the broken platforms. Watching, waiting, because whoever attacked them wasn't finished. And next time, They wouldn't miss the beast. They'd aim for the tamer. Later, after patching Ash's wounds, Ren and Lena regrouped near a fragment of stable ground. Neither spoke at first. Lena finally broke the silence. You think it was another competitor? Ren stared into the mist. No, he said. Lena frowned. Then who? Ren didn't answer. Because deep down he already knew. It was someone who didn't want him reaching Azura. And they were willing to kill to make sure of it. Back inside his Sanctum Core, Ren stood at the edge of the molten river. Ash slept fitfully nearby, embers rising with every breath. Above them the sky rippled. The stars shifted. The golden aurora deepened. And from the depths of the chasm, a low, slow hum began to rise. Not violent, not urgent, but inevitable. Ren closed his eyes, felt the pulse of the world beneath him, and whispered, "Come if you want. I'll burn my own path." The rift mist thinned as Ren and Lena moved cautiously through the broken platforms. Ash limped slightly at Ren's side, but his spirit burned steady. Mira the Sylvian Hare flicked her ears constantly, sensing every ripple of unstable mana. Ren's mind stayed sharp despite the exhaustion gnawing at him. They had survived the first wave. But survival wasn't enough anymore. Now, they had to climb. They reached a plateau of jagged stone overlooking a wide stretch of broken ruins, half-sunken temples, shattered bridges, fractured veil crystals still leaking faint energy. And in the center of it all, chaos. Beasts battled in droves, mist wolves, rift crocs, ironclaw lizards. But they weren't fighting each other. They were fleeing. Running from something deeper inside the mist. Ren crouched low, Ash following suit. Lena dropped beside him, face pale. "What's chasing them?" she whispered. Ren narrowed his eyes. Then he saw it. No. Two figures walked calmly through the battlefield. Not running. Not dodging. Walking. Their beasts cut down any creature foolish enough to approach, moving with deadly, almost lazy efficiency. The first was a tall boy with steel-gray hair, wielding a staff etched with ancient glyphs. Beside him, a slim girl in black armor guided a massive white-eyed serpent, its scales pulsing faintly with cursed light. Both wore league crests sewn onto their jackets. But their rankings? Ren caught them on the hovering holographic board above the rift. Number 12, Vane Hollow. Number 17, Sylvie Mar. Top 20. True rankers. Lena exhaled slowly. We're not ready for that. Ren didn't argue. Ash growled low, sensing the pressure radiating from the rankers like heat waves. Vane lifted his staff lazily, and a pillar of blue flame erupted beneath a charging iron-claw lizard, vaporizing it instantly. Sylvie's serpent lashed out, crushing a mist wolf mid-leap with casual precision. Neither of them even blinked. Ren watched, analyzing. Not frozen by fear. Not blinded by admiration. Just studying. They weren't moving faster than him. Not stronger in pure energy output. They were cleaner. No wasted movements. No hesitation. Perfect bond synchronization. If Ren and Ash fought them now, they'd lose. Badly. Not because they lacked power. Because they lacked polish. "Come on," Ren said, motioning Lena back into cover. "No point fighting them yet." "Yet?" Lena squeaked. Ren smiled faintly. "One day." Ash flicked his tail once, agreeing. They moved quietly away from the battlefield, keeping to the misty edges. But as they retreated, Ren felt it again. Us. Watching. Not the rankers. Someone else. Hidden. Waiting. He clenched his fists. Not now. Focus on the league. Not the shadows. Hours later, after clearing several minor rift beasts and securing 2 more beast cores, Ren and Lena set up a temporary camp in a broken archway near a collapsed bridge. Small fire. Low profile. Enough time to heal and rest. Lena dozed, curled against Mira. Ash stayed awake, perched on a broken column, eyes scanning the mist. Ren leaned back against the stone, feeling the pressure in his chest ease, just a little. They had points now. Not enough to guarantee advancement, but enough to be noticed. And that was a different kind of danger. In the dead of night, Ren stood watch. The rift mist flowed like slow rivers across the ruined stones. Ash yawned once, embers curling from his nostrils. Ren stared upward. The stars above the rift weren't real, just illusions projected by collapsed space. But he still found comfort in them. He thought of Azura, the academy beyond reach. The ones already waiting for him there, hunters, rivals, maybe even allies. He thought of his father, of the broken paths left behind, of the serpentine shadow deep inside his Sanctum Core, coiling and smiling in the darkness. And he made a quiet promise, To himself. To Ash. To the fire within. I'll stand among them. Not just survive. Rise. The mist shifted again. But this time he didn't flinch. Ash's flames burned brighter. And together they watched the broken world sleep. Rift Day 2. Survival, confirmed. Advancement, not yet secured. Spiritual energy, low. Fatigue rising. But Ren didn't slow down. He and Lena had left the broken archway just after sunrise, their beasts lightly rested and battle ready. Ash moved with a growing awareness, his senses sharper, his reactions tighter. Something inside him was evolving. They descended into a lower cavern level carved beneath the floating platforms, an ancient sublayer that wasn't part of the League's original briefing. But it was emitting League markers. That meant only one thing. A ranked competitor had claimed this area, and was guarding it. This feels wrong, Lena muttered, stepping through a narrow passage. The walls here were twisted, half crystal, half ancient bone. The air crackled with dormant glyphs. Not natural. Ren paused beside a strange marking etched into the floor, a spiral made of runes and beast scratch clawwork. Trap artist, he murmured. What? Lena asked. Ren pointed. This spiral's too deliberate. And these claw marks aren't wild. They're patterned. Someone designed this. Lena stepped back instantly. A rancor? More than likely. Suddenly, Ash growled. Oh, danger closed low. Ren dropped into a crouch just before a glyph activated behind them. A wave of phantom energy swept through the corridor like a pulse, warping light, bending noise, making the ground seem to breathe. Mira shrieked and bolted. Lena called after her, but her voice vanished into a wall of silence. Not blocked. Swallowed. Ren reached for her, but she was already gone. So was the corridor. He turned. Ash was still with him, but everything else had changed. He now stood in a copy of the Sanctum Core. Not his sanctum, but one rendered in grayscale, broken, echoing. Ash moved slowly as if unsure whether to breathe fire or hold it in. Ren stared at the surroundings. Illusion. No, projection. Someone wasn't just casting visual traps. They were mirroring spiritual memories. A voice echoed faintly through the false sanctum. You learn fast, Kairo. Ren tensed. He recognized that voice from League intros. Rank number 22, Soren Nithe. A trap specialist. Projection-style tamer. Beast class, Phantom Root Hound, a spirit type that manipulated memory and perception through mana residue. Soren's voice returned, calm and lazy. Don't take it personally. You're just bait. I needed to test my layer. You're new, bro. Perfect pressure sample. Ren growled under his breath. He's watching me. Gauging me. Like a lab animal. Ash snarled, heat rising. Flames sparked against the illusion but didn't burn it. Ren sat down, closed his eyes, breathed, slow, centered, still. If he moved recklessly, he'd stay inside the trap. To beat it, he needed to outthink the caster. Ash, he said softly, let's break the link. Ash stepped close. They synced their breath. Resonance pulse, partial inversion. A rare technique Professor Velen had once demonstrated. By inverting the sensory flow between Tamer and Beast, Ren could disrupt projection influence and scramble illusion layers. He'd never tried it in live combat. No time like now. He channeled the pulse. The world cracked, then shattered. Like ice beneath fire. Ren dropped to his knees as the projection fell away. The real dungeon returned. Ash stumbled beside him, panting but alive. And Lena. Ren? She ran from the far corridor, Mira trailing behind her. They collided in a half-embrace, breathing hard. You disappeared, she gasped. So did you. They looked around. The glyphs were still glowing, but the trap had collapsed. And from somewhere deeper in the dungeon, applause, soft, slow, mocking. Soren's voice echoed again. Well done. You didn't disappoint. Ren stood, jaw clenched. What do you want? Oh, nothing, Soren said smoothly. I already scored my league points. This layer's just for fun. I enjoy watching things break. The voice faded. No more projections. Just the distant sound of crystal rain falling from the dungeon ceiling. They pressed onward. Slower. Wiser. Later that night, Ren sat alone at the edge of a rift spring pool, one of the rare calm zones where spiritual water gathered. Ash stood knee-deep in it, letting the natural mana recharge his core. Lena had fallen asleep nearby. Ren looked at his reflection in the water, and saw not himself, but the twisted reflection Soren had forced him into. Gray. Hollow. Flame flickering low. He touched the surface. let the image ripple, then looked up at the rift's shifting sky. This world doesn't need more fire, he murmured. It needs fire that can see through lies. Ash looked up from the water, and for a moment, just a flicker. His golden eyes mirrored Ren's perfectly. The rules of the pack duel were old, ancient even. A Beast Tamer could issue a formal challenge, public, witnessed, and sanctioned by league laws. If accepted, the winner could demand the loser's beast, or offer one of their own. Most considered it barbaric, obsolete. But inside the rift, with league points on the line, anything legal was fair. Even this. Ren stood on the crumbling stone platform near the rift's eastern basin, jaw tight, hands at his sides. Before him stood a tall tamer dressed in dark crimson robes, an insignia stitched across his chest, a black wheel encircling a sunburst fawn. Foreign guild, southern province. His name, Nyril Sov. League rank, unknown. SE output, high. I challenge you under pact code, Nyril said, his voice calm but iron-edged. Around them, other tamers gathered in the mist, drawn by the announcement. Spectators, witnesses, hunters hoping for blood or drama. Ren didn't flinch. You want my flame drake? Nyril smiled. You summoned a rare elemental class beast, awakened a custom signature technique, and broke a riftborn warden. Of course I want him. Ash stood beside Ren, tail low, silent flames dancing along his spine. His gaze didn't waver. Neither did Ren's. I refuse, Ren said coldly. You can't, Nyril replied, raising his wrist crystal. The League sanctioned this rift zone. That includes open pack duels. You step inside it, you play by the laws. Ren's jaw clenched. He turned to the League observer, a neutral faceless steward clad in silver robes. Is that true? The steward nodded once. Refusing to fight forfeits your position. You'll lose all current points. You'll be flagged as a non-combatant. Disqualified from Azura consideration. Lena stepped forward from the crowd. That's insane. That rule hasn't been enforced in years. The steward didn't respond. Ren looked at Ash, then back to Nyril. Then he stepped forward. Fine. But I won't be trading my beast. Nyril raised an eyebrow. Then what do you wager? Ren's eyes sharpened. You'll forfeit your League crest. Murmurs spread through the watching crowd. The League crest wasn't just rank. It was entry. Without it, Nyril would be removed from the Novice League entirely. Nyril's smile faded, then returned sharper. Brave, but foolish. Begin. The platform locked with a shimmer of light, forming a dueling ring. No interference. No help. Just one-on-one. Ren and Ash on one side, Nyril and his beast on the other. A blur of crimson mist spiraled into form beside Nyril. A blight serpent. Rare. Illegal in some provinces. Its scales leaked a slow black smoke that twisted the air. Eyes like coals soaked in poison. Ren's heart pounded once. This wasn't a beast of balance. It was bred for control, corruption, and suppression. Ash flared brighter, instinctively preparing a defense. Watch for suppression mist, Ren said under his breath. We can't outpower him. We break his rhythm instead. Ash's tail tapped once against Ren's boot. Understood. The duel began. The blight serpent struck first. No roar, no warning. It lunged in a whip-fast blur, releasing a spiral of mist mid-charge. Ash dodged left, barely clearing the corrupted aura. Ren felt the sting of the serpent's presence in the air. It didn't just hurt. It weighed down thought, clouded judgment. That was its power, spiritual distortion. Not falling for it, Ren muttered. He closed his eyes. Beast echo. Ash's senses overtook his own. No fog. No poison. Just movement. Ash twisted in midair and launched a counter-flame, not at the serpent, but at the mist itself. The fire condensed, spiraled, and snapped the suppression field with a flash. The air cleared. Nyril narrowed his eyes. Ren didn't speak. Ash surged forward. Infernal spiral. The serpent met him head-on, but its defense pattern was rigid. Controlled. Ash faked a strike left, then flipped, striking from below. Precision. Fire. Connection. The blight serpent recoiled. Ren pushed Essie into the bond. Ash's flames blazed brighter. But the blight serpent coiled low, and spit a chain of venom straight at Ren. Illegal move, but unprovable in rift fog. Ren rolled sideways barely. Ash roared. For the first time in the fight. Not controlled. Angry. And Ren felt it. Not rage. Not recklessness. Protection. Ash surged forward without command. But Ren didn't stop him. He stepped in sync. Beast and Tamer. Not order. Not control. Just. Ash twisted high into the air, flames burning silently across his limbs. Silent spiral, break form. The strike landed dead center. The blight serpent slammed into the stone. Once. Then twice. Then didn't move. Silence. Then the platform light faded. The steward stepped forward. Winner, Ren Kairo. Pact concluded. Ren didn't wait. He turned to Nyril. The man was kneeling beside his unconscious beast, lips twisted. You fought dirty, Ren said. Nyril spat blood into the dirt. You don't belong in Azura. Ren stepped past him. I don't need your permission. Later, alone, Ren crouched beside Ash near a quiet rift stream, slowly pouring spiritual water into his beast crystal. Ash grumbled, exhausted but proud. Ren smiled faintly. You chose to protect me. Ash flicked his tail once as if to say, of course. Ren exhaled. This bond isn't a weapon. It's a promise. And deep inside the chasm in his sanctum core, the ancient flame coiled tighter.